Good evening and welcome to the City of Federal Way Council meeting for March 7th of 2023. Would you all please rise for the presentation of the colors and the flag salute by Troop 307.
Attention, color guard forward march. Color guard hold. Color guard prepared to post the colors. Color guard post the colors. Color guard salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard reform ranks. Color guard dismissed.
All right, nice job, gentlemen. All right, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Honda, for that suggestion. You are their Kiwanis advisor, is that right?
Yes.
That's great. So thank you for joining us today.
Troop 307.
Troop 307, so thank you so much. Okay, let's get right into Mayor's emerging issues and report. That's me, so let's see here. I'm confident of that. Thank you, I'll be here all week. All right.
Okay. Then what happens next week?
I have no idea. All right. So we've got the National League of Cities Conference in Washington, D.C. on March 26th to the 29th. We've got several council members that are going to be attending as well, and very much looking forward to that. And I'll be there as well. And it's really a great opportunity to meet elected representatives of their cities, mayors, city council members from all over the country, and some federal folks as well. And we'll make sure that we check in with our federal delegation while we're back there and really work on issues about bringing resources and opportunities to the city of Federal Way. So it's something I'm very much looking forward to. Bill Vedino, our policy analyst extraordinaire, will be with me as well, along with several council members. Okay, so that's the next issue is the legislative updates, state and federal. In regard to the state legislative efforts, there are 3 bills that we've been really focusing on. And Bill, actually, it's 1110, I think, is the middle housing, but let's start with the pursuit bill. That's House Bill 1363. And just as a little trick, or just as background, House bills usually start with in the thousands, the 1,000s, and Senate bills usually start with the 5,000s. So the House bills, oh, actually, Bill, it's actually on the Blake decision. It's 5536, I believe. But anyway, the pursuit bill is 1363. It went through first the Public Safety Committee of the House. I testified for it at that time. Then this is about bring back pursuits to where police officers can pursue individuals that are suspected of committing a crime. 2 years ago, the standard was raised to the high level of probable cause, which means that the officer would have to have complete probable cause before they could stop someone. And being a prosecutor for 19 years, I can tell you that almost never happens at that level. It usually ripens into probable cause. And so it essentially has created a circumstance in which, since that law was passed, car thefts have gone up 88% statewide, 58% just in the past year in the city of Federal Way. That's a really very, very concerning development. That has passed out of both the Public Safety Committee and the Transportation Committee. It is in what they call rules, which means it's essentially on, for baseball fans, that means it's on deck. But the cutoff is tomorrow. And we'll see. So watch for the news about whether, right now, there's the deadlines in the legislature means that the House of Origin for this, it's the House bill, it's cut off. It has until till tomorrow in order to pass that full House, its House of Origin, and then go over to the Senate for consideration in that. And that's what happens. The Senate and the House essentially exchange bills with the bills that pass through their houses, their chambers. So we'll see. Right now, it's a jump ball whether 1363 is going to get through the House, and we'll see. Right now, it includes certain things like it reduced it to reasonable suspicion for things like assault in the first, second, third, and fourth degree, sex offenses, and certain other violent offenses, but it does not include property crimes, or most notably, in its current form, does not include car theft. So if an officer is behind a stolen car, it's still, even under this bill, would not be able to pursue a stolen vehicle. So the movement down Olympia is incremental, and we're working on it. I've been down testifying several times on that bill. The Blake decision, I believe it's 5536. Again, the little trick is to know and our former state representative, our council president, Linda Kuchmarwood, is an expert on all these things. And the Blake decision, Kate, went through the Senate, and it did actually, that bill, there were several different bills that were proposed. I went down to Olympia and testified on that. Blake, if you recall, is the state Supreme Court decision that invalidated the felony drug possession statute in the state of Washington because it was missing a key element, which was the word knowingly. And to prove that the state would have to prove that a person knowingly possessed these things. So 2 years ago, there was a fix, and there has been efforts to try to get that addressed. That did pass in a bipartisan manner. Did pass the Senate. I think 28-21, I believe, was the final vote. We've been watching these things very carefully because of the laws that were passed several years ago. It requires 2 prior warnings for a possessory offense, which means without a database and without a tracking system, it's nearly impossible to hold somebody accountable in the state of Washington for a felony drug offense for possession of fentanyl, methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, all of these things. And so when officers encounter people on the street, they're required to give them 2 prior warnings. The problem is there is no database for who's received a warning and no documentation for it. So that's why they call it the Blake fix. The first was to fix the law, and now it's about fixing the fix, so to speak. Oh, look, you fixed it. Thanks, Bill. So it did pass the Senate, so now the 5536 is now on to the House for its consideration there. And if it passes the House, then there'll be what they call reconciliation. I think that's right, Linda, right? And then on to the governor for signature. And then missing middle is 1110. That's the substitute House Bill 1110. And that's a proposal in the legislature right now that would essentially legalize fourplexes in a city like Federal, or actually pretty much anywhere in the state, in any residential neighborhood, single-family housing, anywhere. And so there's been a great deal of effort and discussion regarding 1110 and its progress, something we're keeping a very close eye on. There's a working group by the Association of Washington Cities. So that's something to kind of keep your eye on. I don't think it's really received that much attention. The federal agenda we're going to talk about with regard later in the meeting. There's a letter that council has been talking with Tanya Carter, our economic development director, and we'll spend some time, the council will spend some time considering that. Let's move on to the next. Okay, we've got Do the Right Thing, March of Diapers Drive, Twin Lakes Fred Meyer, March 18th. And we have our resident superstar, Cheryl Hurst. Cheryl, would you like to talk about all your efforts for the diaper drive?
Well, first of all, it's actually not per se my efforts. It's to be honest with you, it's something that was started between 2013, 2014. what a lot of people don't know is that you can't buy diapers on an EBT card, AKA food stamps. So you say to yourself, it's like, oh, okay, well, great, they have food. And let's see, well, how are they gonna buy diapers? If they wanna go to work, they have to specifically have 8 to 10 diapers, disposable, mind you, because only 1.5% of the daycares in the state of Washington will take cloth. So it'll be great if we could go back to cloth, but I think we're going past that. But this is our 9th annual March of Diapers, and, you know, to say thank you to the city of Federal Way is like, it's just actually not enough. Because when it first started out, it was just me and the Machinist Union, and I said, hey, do you mind if I add, you know, communities into it? And Federal Way, like, totally embraced it. City of Federal Way, the City Hall, first ones to say, yep, we'll do it. And so it's like you sit there and go, oh, well, last year they did 10,659 diapers. That was in a couple hours, you guys. And that was, you know, not just down having, you'll see a bin down there, which are in multiple, almost 70 different businesses in 15 different cities. But the people were so generous at the Twin Lakes Fred Meyer, and they'll be back again on March 18th. And, you know, what's our goal this year? Do you know, Jim? What's going to be our goal? 20,000?
More, yeah, exactly.
Well, there is.
More than last year.
Yeah, there is a little competition between them and the city of Kent, like you definitely got to show the city of Kent up. But it's benefited Multi-Service Center, Fusion, South King Food Bank, which is basically the Federal Way Senior Center, and unincorporated Auburn. They have Communities and Schools, Federal Way, El Centro de la Raza, Federal Way. That's just what's in Federal Way. We have Dawn Domestic Abuse Network, which helps any woman that needs any help anywhere in the Puget Sound area. We also have Nourish Food Bank in Edgewood, Foster Champs. We have the Maple Valley Food Bank, CareNet of Puget Sound, which has 7 locations around Puget Sound area, Two Hearts Pregnancy Aid, Fusion Transitional Housing, which is here in Federal Way, Pediatric Interim Care, which is new this year, Parent-Child Assistance Program, Prepares of Washington, and then we have the Federal Way Senior Center up there, El Centro's up there, Children's Home Society, Auburn Food Bank, Rocky Community Center. We love our city, Kent, who helps actually with a lot of people in the apartment communities in the Kent area. St. Vincent de Paul, Communities and Schools Federal Way, and a new program place that we have on called Mother Africa. Lots of people don't understand that some of these various organizations, like they literally just don't have a budget for diapers. So what ends up happening is, okay, we can give away food, or we have a grant for this and this and this, but that over half of these people have no grant for diapers. There's no way. So what happens is that some of them are for drug addicted babies, some are trying to help women and people that specifically like don't know where they're gonna live. And when you don't have a budget, you don't get to make a budget line item for something. And you get there and you can help and help and help, but what ends up happening is that it's like, if you want somebody to be able to get their life pulled together and be able to go get a job, you've got to be able to put a child in daycare, and you can't put them in daycare with no diapers. So whatever anybody can do, sometimes people say, well, I just don't have a bunch of money right now. That's okay, you don't have to have money. You can share information on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. A better one is lots of people say, hey, I have, my child grew out of 1s, or my child grew out of 3s, or I have a grandmother that, or grandfather that passed away that had adult depends. We take those also. We take open packages. So, look through your closets, ask around. We would love for the city of Federal Way to blow it out of the water. So I've tried to get Jim to wear, a diaper outfit. He, under no circumstances will he do that. But, like maybe.
City of Federal Way doesn't deserve it. It just doesn't.
So, he would be so cute in there. But in theory, maybe we could get one of the city council members to trail around. I was thinking Tran, I was thinking Tran maybe. So let's hope that we can beat the 20,000. If you can't be there from 10 to 2 on the 18th, there's information at any of the businesses, including here. There's a little QR code. You can QR code it, and just in the notes, it's a PayPal. We are 501c3. You would put City of Federal Way in there. But, I mean, it's just, it's so hard to just try to explain how grateful we are, because what we did last year, 396,801 diapers, 199,304 wipes in 1 month. That's a lot of nice people. So appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you, Cheryl. You know, it's going to take people a lot of time to get that image out of their heads now, but we're going to work our way through it. But we're all familiar with Billy McHale's, and they have been such a big supporter. And when you go there, you know the party room in the back, right? When you walk in, it's to the right. That room was filled, chock filled with boxes of diapers. So thank you.
2 years ago during COVID, there was like nobody giving any
Yeah.
areas to put it. And he's like, guess what? I can't put customers here, but I can put your diapers here.
That's great. It's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, now we've got the St. Patrick's Day flag raising at City Hall. That's next Friday. Friday just happens to be St. Patty's Day, and here to help us talk about it. Just a wee bit of information here. My friend Craig. Craig Patrick.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor, City Council, Council President, Deputy Mayor. My name is Craig Patrick. We're going to be putting on the raising of the Irish flag on March 17th at 9 a.m. We're going to have a bagpiper there. Neil Hubbard's going to be there. I had a friend reach out to me who South King County wants to be there, so we're going to have drummers there this year and maybe 1 or 2 more bagpipers. I reached out to Fire and Ice. I haven't heard back from them if Susan Walker is going to be doing any dancing, but we will be having a face painter there this year. So we're gonna, to piggyback on Cheryl, we'll be collecting diapers at that event at 9 o'clock in the morning at there. So we got to help those kids with their Irish Miss.
Very good.
That's what we got.
That's
So-
great. And then, yeah, go ahead.
We're gonna work with Cheryl on getting diapers out there for that event. I'll roll out more things on the day of the event. I got a meeting with the Diversity Commission on the 9th of this month, so I'll probably doing a little preemptive thing of what's going to be happening. I was really impressed with the African American month where they had a week of stuff, so we're just doing an Irish week, so every day we're going to focus on a certain thing, and I'll bring that up at the Diversity Commission. Other than that, we've been asked to march in the Seattle Parade. Federal Way's got recognition from the Seattle organizations about what we do here. We've been raising the flag here for 4 years. So we've been invited to go march with them on Saturday, the 11th. So what I was wondering from the city is if the city has like a little flag, a little Federal Way flag that we could take there.
We do.
Up there, that we'd be honored to represent Federal Way in Seattle on St. Patrick's Day.
You bet.
On Saturday, the 11th.
Okay, you bet.
Other than that, we're already kind of working on ideas for next year. We're looking to do something like they do in Seattle, where they have the armory, and they have performances, and they have vendors, and they have food. So next year, we're thinking about maybe doing something at the PAC, where we can get Allegro or Fire and Ice to do a show, and then we have vendors in the PAC, and then we have food trucks. But this is something we're thinking about right now. Well, it's just growing.
And this year, we are going to have the food truck come to the City of Federal Way at noontime. This is at 9 when we start the little program right outside here, and then we'll raise the flag. But a couple hours later, at noon, we'll have, probably about 11:30 by the time it gets here, we'll have corned beef and cabbage. We've got a food truck coming.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so next year, we're going to try to get it at noon. The thing is, we're having issues with performers, bagpipers, and
Yeah.
other performers, because noon seems to be a hot time for them to get started. Other than that, that's about it. I'm going to give a presentation at the Diversity Commission on March 9th. Other than that, are there any questions?
I think, Council President, did you have something?
Are you wearing a diaper?
Am I? No, I'll pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually, probably.
Exactly.
Growing old,
Okay,
growing old
let's,
is a luxury.
yeah, exactly. But Okay, thank you. Thank you,
thank
Craig.
you, thank you.
Appreciate it. And thanks for all the work you're putting into this. Okay, now, Mayor's emerging issues. We've got update on 2021 audit, the State Auditor's Office exit conference. Our Finance Director, Steve Grimm.
Mayor, I can be brief. The State Auditor's Office just last Monday conducted their 2021 audit, delivered their report at an exit conference, and they gave us nothing but good news. They spent several months with staff, Deputy Director Chase Donnelly and the other financial analysts. Well, they actually worked with purchasing people across every department. But as you know, the city's fund balance improved. We reported revenues coming in better than budget, and our expenses were managed with budget. Our expenses were managed within budget, and so we wanted the auditors to confirm that, and they did. When they give us a clean report, they call it an unqualified opinion, and that means not only are the figures presented fairly, they also look at our internal controls and give us a good score on that. And the reason that's important is that the city has a responsibility to demonstrate to our taxpayers that we exercise good stewardship. The 2021 financial audit is on the city website. Anyone can look at it and see for themselves. And I will just mention that the city administrator, the mayor, city council, FedRec committee members, you all have a governance role to make sure that the budget gets adopted. Staff reports to you monthly on progress, and the financial reports get audited. I want to phone a friend here. Finance Committee Chair Tran, this was also the auditor's opportunity to have some independent dialogue directly with you, not through me. Anything you'd care to add to that?
Mayor, thank you, Steve, for putting me right on the spot. So I talked to Steve last week, and we tried to figure out who should report out at this meeting. So I told him that I would try to figure out the most efficient and effective way that I can embarrass him. So, you know, I don't want to add anything that Steve said, but I just want to say that it's my honor working with you, Steve, and Chase, and the rest of the staff in the finance department. I have every confidence in the work that you guys do, and you know, the way that you manage the budget. You not just manage the budget, but you also figured out a way to grow the money. And that is the new thing for this city. So on behalf of my committee and the people in Federal Way, thank you to you and your department.
All right. Good. All right, thank you very much. Okay, now for the most important part of the evening, public comment, the opportunity to hear from you. And before we get started, just as a note, do we have anybody online or anybody that when we get
No,
there?
we don't have anyone signed up remotely.
Okay, well, let me know if that changes.
Okay. will
Okay.
do.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll make sure that we do this as quickly, as efficiently as possible. I'll call out probably a couple of names at a time. Obviously, you've got the speaker will be speaking at the time, but you can queue up essentially starting back there, and that way we can kind of keep moving. So we'll have Andrea Evans, then Walter Kosteka, Robert Titu, Leah Losnagard, Dave Harrelson, Juan Juarez Ramos. And then we've got more, but that's who's on deck, essentially. Andrea Evans.
That's me. I have some materials that I wanted to provide. Is there any way I can give these to you?
Yes, if you can give it to the, do you want us to have them now while you're speaking or later? Okay, you bet. Jennifer, our Assistant City Clerk. Oh, and everybody gets, actually, that gives me a great opportunity. I forgot to say this, Andrea. Everybody gets 3 minutes unless you're here speaking on behalf of more than 5 people that are physically present, and you list them. Council rules ask that we don't want your address, but if you could just tell us the community you live in, that's helpful. All right, Andrea. Oh, and 1 second. So green means go, yellow means you've got 30 seconds to start to wrap it up, and then red means please stop. I don't like to interrupt people, but you know we want to be fair to everybody. All right.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Andrea Evans, and I live in Federal Way. My home is located in the vacant property behind 320th Street and First Avenue. After speaking with my neighbors who live along this location, we have similar concerns about Council Bill number 844, and I'm here today to bring those to your attention. I also have included a petition with my neighbors showing that we are all against this location being put up for consideration, which is in the materials provided. This new development would significantly impact our home's property values. In addition, this location would be easily seen from our homes and backyards, creating an impelling view due to the amount of property needed at this location and very little buffer space that would be available. In addition, since some of our homes are built on a hill behind this property, it would severely impact our personal privacy as the people in this new location would be able to easily see over our fences and into our homes. Please see the photos provided. Removing this much foliage would increase the noise in our backyards and allow for lights from vehicles to come peering into our homes at all times of the night from the street. Currently, this location is zoned for office parks, not a maintenance facility, although my goal is to find a way to turn this into a green belt or a wildlife protected area of some kind. In addition, there would be some wetlands and hundreds of animals living in this property. Please see the photos provided. Believe it or not, these photographs were taken just of the animals I could see within a few hours in my backyard. Type of animals living in this property include birds, eagles, owls, squirrels, rabbits, raccoons, possums, and more, and these animals rely on this location for survival. If selected, this development would also impact the safety and security of the people living in this neighborhood behind this facility. It would allow people off the street to easily access our homes and neighborhoods, meaning that the crime in this location would likely increase. If you decide to go ahead with this location, it may force some of us to have to move and lose our homes, and for some of us, this could mean not being able to afford another home in our lifetime. In addition, I believe this could significantly impact the type of residents living in these homes in the future. Lastly, I would like to identify a couple of locations, lastly, I was able to identify a couple of locations, some of which are currently owned by the city that could house this location. I believe that another review of possible locations could provide to be beneficial. For example, the city owns approximately 45 acres off of 359th Street, Pacific Avenue, which could easily house this new location. And I believe that it would not impact residential homes. In conclusion, proceeding with this location would not only kick animals and humans out of their homes, but would severely decrease property values, people's rights to privacy, and increase criminal activity in the area. I urge you to please consider all their alternatives instead of this location and to think about the impacts this will have on our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, thank you. Walter Kostecka.
My name is Walter Kostecka, and my wife and I have lived in the Hillside Heights neighborhood since 1982. In the 1980s, Fred Meyers tried to change the zoning laws regarding the property on 320th and First Avenue. I remember a Fred Meyers official saying, "We will do what we want to do." I believe this attitude by Fred Meyers helped spark the movement to create the city of Federal Way. The next group that wanted to change the property on 320th and First was Safeway. And I remember going to a meeting and saying, why don't you just put the Safeway up by Kmart? And their answer was, whoa, no, we can't do that. And Safeway is currently at that spot. A few years ago, we heard about a group that proposed putting a Chinese international school on that property. And I have no idea what happened to that. What I do know is that this property is privately owned. And from what I have been told, it is zoned for housing, small apartments, and small business. Whether your proposal to put the maintenance facility falls within the zoning code, I do not know. I know the people are concerned about the wetlands and wildlife on the 16 acres on 320th site, that the city officials will change zoning laws to meet their supposed needs. But here are my concerns. Would you need all 16 acres to be a maintenance facility, or could some of it be used to maintain a wetlands or small park? Second Avenue off 317th Place is not a cul-de-sac, and I hope and pray your plans would include keeping that street blocked off instead of opening it up to cars and trucks. Number three, we have always been told that 4th Avenue would never be opened up from 318th to 320th. Is that still the plan? Number four, what type of border would you put up to protect the residents in Hillside Heights from the noise, etc.? For many years, we in the Hillside Heights community have been concerned about the traffic on 4th Avenue and 317th Place. We've requested speed bumps or roundabouts for the last 30 years, and all we have been given was a stop sign on 317th and 4th Avenue. I certainly hope that if this maintenance facility is placed on the 16-acre property, city officials will show the respect to the Hillside Heights community, which it deserves, and do something about the traffic and excess speeding on 17th Place and 4th Avenue South. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Tatu.
Hi, my name is Robert Titu. I've lived in Federal Way since 2005. I've moved overseas to 2 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan during that stay. I am a retired U.S. Army of 25 years. And currently, I teach Army JROTC for the past 10 years in the Auburn School District. I am from the state of Maine and love belonging to a community. Over the last 18 years, having my home and raising my 3 children, they went to Mirror Lake, Sacagawea, Fawapa, and the Federal Way High School. We have seen almost too much growth since I've been in this community. Any piece of trees, concrete, seems to get built upon, and traffic increases and crime. As an educator and experienced individual around many communities, why do we keep pushing this city to push this maintenance facility to a location push it away from the residents? Why are we putting a commercial building right behind my home? Okay, that would allow to see the beautifulness and everything part of a community and these trees, as the other individuals discussed. If the bill number 844 could move away from the residential area, I understand the facilities may be needed, but it just seems like we are building in this city. I know it's around 100,000, and it just seems like we have too much concrete in this city. Again, thank you, Robert Titu.
All right, thank you. Leah Nostergaard.
Hi, my name is Leah Losnegard. We have been residents of Federal Way and lived in the same house for 36 years. We actually have been there longer than Federal Way has been a city, which backs up to the property you're proposing for your operations and maintenance facility location at Site 844. I came here tonight to give you all kinds of reasons why you should not build your facility in our neighborhood. And there are many reasons to give, but the one reason I feel is the most important for me is the lack of courtesy, respect, and compassion for the residents of this neighborhood and our homes. What you are asking us to give up is unacceptable. I ask you all to put yourself in our shoes. Would you object to an industrial facility built in your backyards? Would you have fears going into your yard at night or alone, or letting your children play freely in their own backyard? Or would you think twice about that, knowing or not knowing what is behind your home? You as elected officials have the authority to stop this from moving forward and not use Site 844. The property is zoned for single-story office complexes, not for 30-foot bays to house diesel trucks. But my understanding is that for government facility use, it's allowed without any stipulations or restrictions. A 10-foot perimeter landscape buffer is not enough to ensure our privacy or meet our security and safety needs in that area. The owner and the owners of this property also owns one of the houses that directly backs up to this green belt, but he doesn't live there. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, he lives in another country. So I am sure he is eager to sell, which sells us all out. However large or small this facility is, it will have an impact on the value of our homes, sense of security and peace in this area. Not to mention the wildlife that will sadly and unnecessarily be displaced. Tragically, some will not make the journey to their new home. We are asking you to reconsider this location and find another location that better fits your needs and ours. It's not wanted, does not belong in our neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, Dave Harrelson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Dave Harrelson. I've lived in Federal Way for almost 35 years, and I live next to the mayor, so in West Campus. I'm not part of the discussion about the housing site, but I'm here representing the Federal Way Public Market. We're still working hard to try and create a space, particularly in our downtown, that could serve as a real gathering place for our community. There's a lot of hard work going on with your staff and so on, with developers on how to develop that property, and we'd really love to be able to have a permanent facility down there that could act as a gathering place, because we really feel like it would benefit not only things like the PAC and the other investments that have already been made, but it would also mean more dollars coming into this community. Just wanted to update you that we are now an official nonprofit. We have hired a grant writer, and we actually had our second community engagement event. And thank you, Deputy Mayor Honda, for stopping by with your press aide, taking pictures. But we're planning on doing a whole lot more, I think, smaller sort of community engagement activities to find out from people as to how they feel about the public market in general. Having that sort of facility is something we've gotten a lot of really enthusiastic response from all people of all ages. I guess there's always a policy ask when you come to council, and several months ago, you folks went through the last allocations of the ARPA funds, and the public market was part of that allocation process. You were waiting to see what the bid on the Target property and the sod and so on, but there was a budget line item in there that was indefinite about allocating some of those funds to the public market so we could do a feasibility study to see the financial viability. So we asked if you could reconsider that so that we would be able to see if we could move forward with that. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, Juan Juarez Ramos. And Juan, before you get started, let me, the next folks that are going to be called upon, Jimmy Brown, Trinity Buchanan, Evangeline Tagaleo, Rochelle Jeffries, James Christensen, and let's see, Susan Strong. And that's it for now. Go ahead.
Hello, council members. Hello, Mr. Mayor. My name is Juan Juarez. Many of you guys already know me, but I have not seen many of you guys for months now. I'm gonna give you a little update on my life. I just finished taking the SATs. Very stressful, but no more studying. I became the first Latino to become a pager for Washington's 30th Legislative District for Senator Claire Wilson. I am proud to hold that achievement, and I am proud to keep working as much as I here. Today I come to you not as a bragging about my paging, but instead I come to you with concerns. I come here many times about Military Road, about how unsafety has gone in. Of course, Military Road has gone more better, and I thank you for that. Though I do plan on working with my school to build a cleanup Military Road day where we volunteer our time and clean up Military Road as there is still a mess there. But I'm not here to talk about that either. I'm here to talk to you about last week, Wednesday. A 16-year-old student was shot in the head on his way to school. Right here in the head. Doctors first said that he was not going to make it at all. At school, we were already devastated with another loss of a student who committed suicide the day before that. I knew those two students. I knew the one who got shot when I was in middle school. And I knew the girl who unfortunately committed. I come here today because with the student who got shot, we have not received any sort of comforting from our government. He was walking to school preparing to take the SATs, and next thing you know it, he's in the hospital, he's in a coma, recovering, fighting for his life. Yet today, no extra police has come over, no resources have come over. We had to find our own resources at school. I had to find resources for my fellow students because I am a class senator. I represent my junior class, and those two students were juniors. So how hard it is for me to not rely on my government, instead rely on myself to find resources for my students. Today, I come to you for begging to please help us at TJ. We are begging you. I am begging you as a teenager who should be, instead of not worrying about whether I'm going to live tomorrow, instead I should be worrying about whether I'm going to get a scholarship or whether or not I'm going to go to my dream school. Instead, I'm over here waking up every day to see whether or not I'm going to live again tomorrow, to see whether or not I'm going to get shot in the head. That's why I ask you one more time to please find our way, do a town hall again with our community in Military Road. Help us. Thank you.
All right, Chief, can you respond to this?
Yes, Mayor. For the benefit of the audience that's here tonight, the speaker was talking about a 16-year-old who was shot in the head. That did not occur in our jurisdiction. That occurred in the Kent jurisdiction. And I also want to share that Thomas Jefferson High School is not within the city limits of Federal Way. That's in unincorporated King County. So thank you.
All right, thank you. We do have school resource officers, though, at TJ, do we not?
Yes, we do partner with Federal Way Public Schools, and we have our officer there, even though it's not our jurisdiction, because the jurisdiction that the school's located at is not able to provide an SRO officer.
But if there's a safety situation at TJ, we have officers there.
Yes, we do.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
I would just say to Juan, we do know you, and, you know, you visited us quite a lot, and this is the first time I've heard of this, and I'm really sorry. And, you know, you can reach out to us personally, too. You know, I had no idea, and thank you for what you're doing in your school with your classmates, and I'm really, really sorry for what's been happening. But this is the first time I've heard of this, and it's devastating.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
So,
telling us. Yeah.
for whoever can respond, Juan didn't mention this, but he had a fire at his home a while back, and he is now essentially in another location, but still going to TJ. But some tragic things have happened to him. So if any of you know any resources that can help, Red Cross, Juan, it would be certainly helpful.
All right, thank you.
Maybe, Chief, you could pass that on.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Jimmy Brown.
All right, good evening, council members. Good evening, Federal Way community. My name is Jimmy Brown. Just to humanize a little bit about why we're here. I've been in Federal Way since 2017, recently moved to Tacoma. My grandfather's been in Federal Way since 91. I started my work in education in Federal Way. So in 2008, 2007, I was a mentor at Thomas Jefferson, then became a guidance counselor in Federal Way Public Schools. After that, went on to get my MPA, Master's in Public Administration, and started my own consulting business in education in 2016. My focus here today, though, is to talk about how this consulting ended up leading to youth voice opportunities and work in Federal Way Public Schools and Kent School District. So we heard about 2,000 student voices before the pandemic hit, and the focus of our youth voice sessions was to understand how students would like to experience education. So we developed non-traditional pathways of success, which created Build to Lead. Build to Lead is an organization, nonprofit, that works inside of Federal Way Public Schools, as well as the charter sector with Why Not You Academy. And our focus is empowering, engaging, and educating students to understand their power in civic engagement, education, college readiness, financial literacy, as well as many other things. We operate these programs during the school year, during the summer, and then we also do community-based systems change work. And we'll start an initiative right here in South King County, specifically in Federal Way in healthcare, where we'll partner with UW Physicians Clinic, Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, Morehouse School of Medicine to do community listening sessions around how they're experiencing healthcare. The real reason why I'm here today is we have some students who are learning about the different systems. So they're learning about education, criminal justice, and healthcare. While I'm doing this work with students inside of the classroom, a lot of them have never visited a city council meeting. They don't know how council operates. They don't understand the power of their voice in these situations or how government runs when you talk about being able to offer reverse bureaucratic models of listening sessions or advocacy. So our goal when we're working with youth is to bring them right into the fire. So I have 3 students here today that are going to be talking about some of their personal experiences within the systems of criminal justice, education, and healthcare. Some of them are from Federal Way, but all of them go to Why Not You Academy, which is a charter school. And one thing that they will be asking and advocating for through their letters is an opportunity to speak with council members from different areas to see what's happening in these communities for some of the issues that they raise. So if you would be so inclined after this session, to think deeply about how we can connect. We'll reach out to each one of you individually through emails and see if you'd be willing to come and talk to our students about what's happening within the systems of criminal justice, education, and healthcare in Federal Way. And we would love to continue to invite you guys out to our events that we'll be having soon. Without further ado, I would like to bring up our students, and I'll let Mayor Farrell go ahead and announce them. And luckily, they're the 3 students that's right behind me. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, Trinity Buchanan.
Good evening, City Council and the community members. Hello, my name is Trinity Buchanan. I'm a 10th grade student at Why Not You Academy. I want to talk about the sector of the healthcare systems, directly about the high cost of ambulance rides in the area. In the state of Washington, the average price of an ambulance ride without the life-saving services of a medic has a base fee of $950 plus $15 every additional mile. That is for someone without any health care insurance at all. In my own experience, for an 18-mile ambulance ride, it cost my family about $16,000, along with additional fees that my father is still paying on. My question to you as the City Council is, do you have any solutions to make the cost of ambulance rides more affordable so families like mine are able to receive basic medical services while being transported to the hospital, and for other community members not to be scared or afraid when their lives are in danger and need help?
All right. Thank you, Trinity. Brian, why don't we have, we've got, I'll set aside each one of the, if there's questions, and maybe you can get back if you've noted her questions. Thank you very much. Okay, Evangeline Tegaleo.
Good evening. My name is Evangeline Tangaleo. I'm a 10th grader here at Why Not You Academy. I'm 17 years of age. I was raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, and recently moved here to Federal Way, Washington. I stand before you today to address the criminal justice system. How you make us see these systems and laws that you made is a system that is aimed to protect and aimed to serve others. But that is not what I've experienced nor read or watched on the news. I see people get gunned down, I see kids being beaten without resistance, and I see justice not being served. When I think of the criminal justice system that we have today, I think of the eyes of my brother begging for mercy from officers who took an oath to serve and protect. I'm sharing this because if a story is what it takes for you to change your perspective on these matters in front of us all, then here I will share my story. The criminal justice system isn't broken for any matter. It was designed to do what it does. The system was built off of racism and classism. It was built to suppress us and protect the ruling class. In the past 3 years, about 4,550 deaths were caused by police brutality. These numbers were confirmed to be deaths of mostly Blacks, Indigenous people, and Hispanics. The criminal justice system we are meant to follow and respect does not protect the percentage of innocent people dying from police brutality. These statistics and data show me to live in fear because I could die even if I comply. At a very young age, I learned that the color of one's skin can be viewed as a threat, when in reality, the biggest threat is this country's views that came from centuries of ignorance, self-righteousness, and oppression. The pledge we recite says, with liberty and justice for all. Where is that justice for Kamani Gray, Sean Bell, Micah Brown, and countless others who did not get their justice? Police violence should be prevented. The systematic racism that leads to police violence is a huge threat to public health. We are told that we have the right to remain silent, and whatever we may say can and will be used against us in the court of law. But when we comply, we still end up on the floor or with a bullet in our head. We have suffocated enough. Do not let our future generation who lead and determine our future breathe the same air we had to breathe. Before I sit down, I want to ask, what are you willing to do or to give up to change the criminal justice system to help improve the reduction of percentage of people dying due to police brutality? But most importantly, how will you support those who still live with the trauma of losing a loved one due to police brutality? And lastly, how many more incomplete families does there need to be for you to see our suffocation? The system we have is made the way it is, but to many people, an obvious observation, it is not working. I simply ask and stand and ask for a new system, a better system. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And again, I'll pull this a pink sheet out. Maybe you can coordinate with the chief in regard to a response. Okay, Rochelle Jeffries.
Good evening, City Council and community members. My name is Rochelle Jeffries. I am a young Black student attending Why Not U Academy. Today I stand before you all to speak about the injustices within the criminal justice system. There's an increasing amount of fatal police shootings in Federal Way. When officers respond to a call, they are supposed to protect the citizens, even if that means putting their own lives at risk. Looking at the recent news headlines, I find that many of these shootings occur when an officer believes that the person has a weapon or other similar claims. Before the authorities can reveal the full details of the incident, the victim or person being accused has been killed. My ask is that the City Council make ending another life the last resort. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Evangeline, I'm taking a look at your pink sheet. Do you have an email, or is there either an address we can send something to you, or an email address we could send to you? Would you mind maybe with another pink sheet, would you fill that out and make sure that Jennifer gets it? Because I want to make sure we get back to you, okay? Thank you. What's that?
The school.
Right, yes. Okay, thank you, Rochelle. All right, and I'll add that to the list. We'll have you and the chief talk about that. James Christensen.
Hello, I've been a 30-year resident of Federal Way. I reported my concern a couple years ago, fell on deaf ears for the past couple years. I think the mayor appointed somebody to interview me about it. Since I got full custody of my daughter when she's 7 months old, she's now 22, I've been a single custodial parent and a parents' rights advocate. I've dealt with several fathers in the city of Federal Way who got mistreated by the police like I did at visitation exchanges where I get unsolicited legal advice, which is a crime, by police officers telling me how to conduct myself in my court matter and the risks of things that might happen. But more importantly, there's cases in which the police will go into a home after a man has gone through the court system and been granted court-ordered 50-50 visitation with their kids or every other weekend, and the police come in and say, you're being accused by the mother of abuse, like they were during their court case that they're vindicated from. And the police will say, we're going to arrest you if you don't hand over your kids because we're going to take them to CPS because of this, where they're 1,000 times more likely to get molested, abused, or trafficked, or killed. I have a police report right here where Detective Jim Letty admits that he advised the mother to violate the court order and not give the kid over to the father when she accused him for about the 5th or 6th time of being abusive, after, a couple months after he went through a year's worth of court-ordered procedures and got his time with his kids. So during an investigation, when that guy was told to stand down by Detective Letty also and not exercise his visitation with his kids, he missed out on his kids for 3 or 4 months. The kids were traumatized. Their bond was broken with their father because Jim Letty actually, Detective Letty, I called him and followed up on the matter. He said, well, the law allows us to suspend a court order when there's accusations. No writ of habeas corpus, no warrant, no probable cause. I've asked police officers at the scene of incidents like this where they're threatening to arrest the father and take the kids to CPS, do you have probable cause? And they said, no. Well, just in case something might happen, we have to take the kids. Totally unconstitutional, totally fascist. It's the kind of thing we had at the beginning of this country when Britain would come in and take papers and things from people, and that's why we created the Constitution. You can't just walk in and take stuff from us, including our constitutional right to our kids under Troxel versus Granville without state interference. That being said, Detective Letty, I asked him, what law are you talking about? He said, I'm not a lawyer, and he hung up on my face. There is no law. The police do this on a regular basis. And I happen to be the victim of domestic violence, and I have a protection order, and I called the police for 5 different violations, and they won't even exercise the mandatory arrest requirement and arrest the person when I have text messages. The police officers tell me, we can't prove that the text messages from her phone were from her. So I think there's some bigoted discrimination in standards of dealing with men, fathers, and families, and they're disrupting and screwing up families when everybody's crying out for fathers to be involved. It's really disgusting and disturbing to me that the police will cross the line with that. So,
all right, thank you.
I'll be back next council meeting, and after 2 years of dealing with this, I'll be going to court if there's not a resolution by the next meeting.
All right. Susan Strong. And then after Susan, we've got Jeffrey Tancredi, Steve Barbosa. And Susan, before you get started, do we have anybody on the line yet? Or online?
No, we do not.
Okay. And I don't know if I've made it clear, but Councilmember Erica Norton is online. You can probably see her up there. Hi, Councilmember. Okay. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Strong. I moved here in 1975. Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and council members. I heard an interesting report on the Tucker Carlson program the other day. It was from Mayor Richard Bailey of Coronado, California, regarding the homeless in his city. His plan to reduce homelessness in Coronado is to get services to the needy and use code enforcement to clear the streets and sidewalks. Coronado has the lowest homeless rate in California. He implemented his plan by not letting homeless populations build encampments to begin with. Instead of throwing money at the problem or endorsing woke solutions, the Coronado Police and a homeless service provider they work with give homeless individuals in the city one option: get help. The city has a zero-tolerance policy for violating codes against encampments and other violations, but it funds reasonable services to get homeless people back on their feet. Meanwhile, California has 30% of the country's homeless population and has spent $10 billion with a B dollars since 2018 trying to curb the problem. On a different topic, I would like to thank our Police Chief Wong for clearing out the RV and car encampment along South 347th Place, a private road near the Super Walmart. I really appreciate that. This was my concern at the last meeting I was at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Jeffrey Tancredi.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. It's good to see you all. Jeff Tancredi, Federal Way resident since 1997. I'm going to read an email I sent to Representative Christine Reeves and Jamila Taylor. Will you consider sponsoring a bill to expand charter schools that are funded by Washington State? As you know, African American students in Federal Way and across the country score in the lowest percentile on standardized tests when compared to Caucasians and Asians. This is well documented, according to the left-leaning think tank, the Brookings Institute. According to the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, African American students as a group are lagging 2 to 4 grade levels behind Caucasian and Asian students in mathematics and science. I have attended every school board meeting since December of 2021. Whenever there is public recognition for students excelling in mathematics and science, I always see Asian, Southwest Asian, and Caucasian students being recognized, and good for them, and keep working hard. But it's extremely rare, if ever, that I see an African American student being recognized for excelling in mathematics and science. But let me take you back in time when African American students excelled on standardized tests. From 1870 to 1955, the students at all-black Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C. scored higher on standardized tests than 2 of the 3 all-white high schools in Washington, D.C. Those students at Dunbar got accepted into prestigious schools such as Oberlin, Amherst, and the Ivy League, among others. You can read more about this in Black Experience, the Case of Dunbar High School, written by Thomas Sowell. If you truly care about Black lives, Christine Reeves and Jamila Taylor, you will sponsor a bill to give all parents, particularly African American parents, the right to get a voucher paid for by this state so that these parents can have a choice where they send their kids to school. The Federal Way Public Schools and the public schools nationwide have failed the Black community miserably. The K-12 education system is the ticket out of poverty for many minority families. Unfortunately, there are special interest groups who don't seem to care about uplifting the minority community. If they did, they would support vouchers for parents in Washington State. The Federal Way Public Schools are among the worst in the state with respect to achievement test scores. The more the school system talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism, there's a correlation between saying that and African-American scores going down. It's a fact. You can read Charter Schools and Their Enemies, and you can also read Race to the Bottom, like by Luke Rosiak. So please let your representatives know we need more charter schools for everybody, particularly African-American families. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Steve Barbosa. Steve, there you go.
Hi, my name is Steven. I live in Federal Way. If you were creating an advertisement to encourage people to live in Federal Way, what might that ad say? In the past, it might have been the case that the ad would have mentioned that Federal Way is a well-planned community with a commercial district that's separate from, but also located near the residential area. Furthermore, the residential areas are well designed because they are heavily wooded and, by and large, the residents enjoy privacy. These last few years, though, have seen Federal Way drift away from its initial plan, especially as the city has rezoned property in the residential areas to allow for more buildings like apartments. Given that, it is clear that the maintenance plant on the intersection of 320th and 1st Avenue, it would be a mistake to locate it there. As the 2021 report that the council commissioned notes, that location presents an incompatibility issue because of the nearby residences. Both the single-family homes immediately adjacent to the property and directly south across 320th, the condos designated specifically for senior living. The location is also the costliest of the 4 considered in the report, and the necessary wetland mitigation would pose a significant challenge. For these and other reasons, we urge you to reject this location. We need to return to our vision of Federal Way being a well-planned city. We're convinced that this involves commissioning a new report to identify locations for this facility that are in the city center and that do not impact residential areas. The 2021 report showed the cost of Site 4 was approximately $10 million less than the cost of the 320th and 1st Avenue site. And yet, Site 4 was not near residential areas. It seemed to be in the city core. But I was told that for some reason, Site 4 is no longer an option, even though it was far cheaper and would have less impact on residents than Site 3. I encourage the council to seek out new potential locations for the maintenance facility, locations that are more like Site 4. Then, the city can save money overall, and they can ensure that they are not impacting homeowners as they return to their vision of a Federal Way that is a good residential community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheryl Hurst.
Thank you for letting me speak a second time. I'm actually here to talk about Coffee with a Cop that's back. And lots of people feel like they don't have access to the police department because, hey, you don't necessarily want to like, hey, let's go knock on the door and see what you're all about. So the chance to go with Coffee with the Cop's going to be March 15th at Rain City Coffee Company, which is located 32901 First Avenue South. It's the Quad Center, and that's from 9:30 to 11:30. And so from here, literally, if you went to First Avenue, took a right, and went up a couple blocks, you'd be there. I feel like lots of times you feel disconnected. Like they were saying, a lot of people don't know what happens at city council meetings. A lot of people don't know what happens with the police department. A lot of people don't know what happens with the fire department. Sometimes things like this, to be able to just talk to officers or talk to the chief or support staff, all these things you've always wondered about, it gives you 2 hours to go in, have a cup of coffee, and ask the questions. And I realize it's during a lot of people's work time. Unfortunately, you know, it's not on a Saturday, but maybe if you're interested in having specific questions answered or things like that, maybe the thing is just to send in the information into the, you know, the police department via email and get an answer back. But Coffee with a Cop, March 15th, 9:30 to 11:30. So hope to see everybody there.
All right, thank you. Anna Patrick.
Is there
Oh, yeah, we'll do that then. Okay, thank you. You mean like you noted on the form? I do want to read, okay. All right. All right, that's all I've got for public comment. Do we have any other?
There was no one online, but there was one person submitted a letter that was forwarded to council, the mayor before, Michael Whitehead, and it was also against Council Bill 844.
And actually, we received the council received numerous letters, just to let everybody know that's watching, that were on various positions on this issue. And in fact, actually, council, I think we've got some folks here in the audience. We're going to do the presentation. So we're going to do that next. And then we've got the council committee reports and consent agenda. But when we get to council business, is there any objection to pulling, not pulling, but taking the ordinances, the two options, and doing that first? So for the folks that are here for that?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought of all myself. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to, I thank you for the public comment. It's absolutely essential to hear from the folks that we work for you, and thank you very much. It's very helpful. All right, presentations. Proclamation for Women's History Month, March 2023. Council President Kochmar, Deputy Mayor Honda, Councilmember Sefa Dawson, and Councilmember Norton.
So first of all, I'd like to invite the following women to come to the podium. Chamber of Commerce CEO Rebecca Martin, South King Tool Library owner and operator Amanda Miller, Catherine Dunn, business manager for the South King Tool Library, Seroptimus International President Catherine Festa, Historical Society President Mary Ellis, Rotary Club President Diane Lyons, Lake Haven Commissioner Laura Belvin, which I don't...
She's not able to make it. Her mother's in the hospital.
Okay, thank you. Is Fire Commissioner Caroline Vadino here? Or School Board Member Lakeisha Phillips? All right. So March is Women's History Month, and we have a proclamation. After the proclamation, we'll bring the proclamations down and present them to you. You can each have a couple minutes to talk about your organization. And then we're going to do something different that we've never done before and take a group picture of all the women in the audience along with the council here in the chamber. So to document Women's Day in 2023. So we'll start with the proclamation, and all the women council members will be reading it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. So the proclamation will be read in paragraph by the four women on our council. And I must say that we've had wonderful women who have stepped forward over the years to make our community better. Way back when we started with Fusion, way back when women sat around a table, had coffee, and tried to decide how to present or prepare a food bank in 1972, I believe it was, when Boeing was letting everybody go. And ever since then, we've had all kinds of women involved in our community making it better. These are just some of the wonderful people who have been involved. So I'll start. Whereas the month of March is a time to recognize the significant contributions that women of all races, ethnicities, and backgrounds have made to the world in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And
whereas the theme for Women's History Month in 2023 is celebrating women who tell our stories, highlighting women from the past and present who have been active in passing on their stories in all forms of media and storytelling. And
whereas we celebrate Women's History Month and the advancement of gender equity and equality. And
whereas honoring Women's History Month also incorporates the celebration of International Women's Day and Women in Public Office Day. And
whereas the commemoration began in 1978 as Women's History Day and was later championed to be recognized as a national week in 1980 and then a month in 1987. And
whereas on March 8, 1911, the first International Women's Day was celebrated in Austria, Switzerland, Germany, and Denmark. And
whereas Women in Public Office Day, March 19, highlights the fundamental necessity of including women in all aspects of public service, providing inspiration to young women in our communities to become leaders. And
whereas Women's History Month provides the opportunity to dig deep to uncover many of the important roles and the often overlooked stories and contributions of women in history, society, and culture.
Now therefore, we, the undersigned mayor and city council members of the city of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim March 2023 to be Women's History Month and call upon the people of Federal Way to unite as we support the success of women in our past, our present, and our future. Signed the 7th day of March 2023. And while we're making our way down there, because we might be slow, I'll let Rebecca Martin of the Chamber start talking a little bit about the Chamber.
Well, thank you very much, and I really like how you told that story. I, of course, am the CEO of the Greater Federal Way Chamber of Commerce, and I've got a story to tell you and the rest of the world. This is it. Women account for 42% of the businesses in the United States of America. That's 13 million. They generate a workforce of 9.4 million employees. This is our story. We are an economic engine, we are full of passion, and we collaborate to move forward to reach the future as we stand on the legacy that's been built by our sisters and our mothers and our daughters and our friends and their husbands and their sons and all the other guys. We're not too gender insensitive there. So thank you very much for the elected officials who volunteer their time to serve our community. We appreciate it very much. And if you're a business of any kind, we'd love to have you as part of the Chamber of Commerce. And who would like to, are you going next, Catherine?
I am. Thank you, Mayor, Council President, Deputy Mayor, council members. It's an honor to accept this award as the president of Seroptimus International. And in case you don't know, Seroptimus International is a group here in Federal Way of a lot of just stellar women. You know, we were at the State of the City, and half the tables had women from our group were there and their own organizations. And we recently, if you read the Federal Way Mirror, you'll see that we gave money to the hero, Melissa Swain. And she wrote a wonderful essay, and we gave her the money and she cried. And that's why we do this work. We empower women. And anybody who wants to join, just let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for honoring women today, and just really want to say thank you for the City of Federal Way for being partners with both me and as my organization has grown, the South King Tool Library. Sorry, hi, I'm Amanda. If you don't know me, gosh, no. I'm the executive director of the South King Tool Library. We're a nonprofit, and we lend out tools. We empower women by literally giving them the tools to change the world. And we do that with everyone. No, you don't have to be a woman, you can be anyone. But we worked with the city to form, and we've been in partnership with the city. We're going to open a second branch in Auburn this year. We're working on a national accelerator program to open an incubator program that would help tool libraries come into all communities. And we are really just happy to remove waste from the world, over 50 tons since we've opened, and we have so much more to be able to give to the community. I feel like that's the story of women too. We have so much more that we can give to the community, that we can bring to the community, and I think that it's amazing when I see the women around me doing all this great work, that I'm now part of that. I try to convince my daughter to come tonight. She's 9, so she was not too into it. Roblox was calling her name. So, but I do this for her, and I do this for the kids sitting here and the young ladies that were presenting to you earlier today. So we can change the world and make it anything they want it to be. And I just want to make sure that women and girls especially understand that. So thank you.
Well, I'm Mary Ailes, and the Historical Society was formed by Eileen Marks and Marie Reed, Shirley Charnell. It was a dream of theirs to let people know about Federal Way's history and to acknowledge the many, many women and what they've done throughout the years in this community. And we are all about gathering those stories, not just women, but we need the stories. This is a very multicultural community, and we want to reach out and let people know that come to us, we'd like to know. What brought you here? What keeps you here? What do you like about it here? What do you don't like about it here? We'll take that too. So I welcome people. Join us at the Federal Way Historical Society, and we welcome your stories.
Thank you for inviting me tonight, City Council members. My name is Diane Lyons. I am the president of the Federal Way Rotary Club and also the development director at Orion Industries. So thank you for partnering with Orion and also our Federal Way Rotary Club. So Rotary is an international service organization founded in 1905 and currently has 1.4 million members worldwide. Rotarians have been leaders in eradicating polio and are now tackling the global malaria health crisis. Rotarians are people of action. Rotarians and women are people of action. I'm proud to be a Rotarian, but as a woman, I would not have been allowed to join the organization that I'm currently the president of until 2 years after I had graduated college, which stunned me when I figured that out. Women were not allowed to be Rotarians until 1989. 1989. It just, to me, it feels like yesterday. That's why I'm thrilled that this year, for the first time ever, Rotary International president is Jennifer Jones, a woman. Our first international Rotary president is a woman. As people of action, what does our club do locally? We provide scholarships to high school students as they head off to college. Last year, in fact, we provided 23 scholarships for high school students. We volunteer in the community. We volunteer with the community gardens. We volunteer at camps for kids. We've helped out the Bridging a Gap program, the BAG program you might be familiar with. We've supported our community programs, our schools and events, our parks, our nonprofit local nonprofit organizations, and we've even provided diapers. So we invite you to get involved with our organization if you're interested. We meet on Thursdays at noon at the Twin Lakes Community Center. Keep your eye out. We are going to be selling raffle tickets here soon as a fundraising event. We have some fabulous prizes. Talk to me after the meeting if you'd like to purchase one. And in the summer, we have a speed croquet tournament coming up. You may have heard about it. We tried it the first time last year. It was so much fun. It's absolutely as much fun as it sounds like. So I just want to thank you again for inviting me to share with you about women in Rotary. I couldn't be more proud to be a woman leader in Rotary and in my community. Once again, women are people of action. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so all women come up to the front and we're going to take a picture. Please.
And by the way, women are in Kiwanis as well. Kiwanis meets every Wednesday at noon at Azteca right across, or Puerto Vallarta right across from Federal Way Fidmeyer. Women work collegially. So just to tell you that women collaborate, work together very well.
The other 11.
Just as one woman said to me that I never met before at the beginning of the meeting, said, if you need help and you want to leave the meeting, I'll get up and flash everybody and then you can sneak out the back. So anyway, women, please join us up here.
All right, so I don't know who's in charge. Would you guys like to stand up?
Yes. You guys, come on down. Come on down. Come on this way. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, I think we're a distraction from the rest of the
I think you're right.
To be the four bookends.
That's okay if you don't see that.
Bruce, make sure you crop off the top half of the photo.
I really like the sparkles on Bill's phone. I'm hoping it's not his.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for all you guys do. All you guys.
Here, here, exactly. I'm going to, I'll follow shortly thereafter. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Mayor, I do have an important announcement.
Yes.
International Men's Day is November 19th.
All right, it's on the calendar.
All right.
I was afraid you were going to say International Men's Day was February 29th.
We'll go for that.
Or February 30th. Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay. All right, now let's move on to the next item of business. We've got Council Committee and Regional Committee reports. Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee. Councilmember Walsh.
Our next Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee meeting will be right here a week from this evening, March 14th at 5 p.m. Be there.
All right, great. Land Use and Transportation Committee, Councilmember Dovey.
Yes, we had our land use meeting last night. It wasn't a record. It was the second longest meeting we've had. There's a lot of planning and a lot of things coming out on land use and rezones and all that you'll be seeing over the next few months. And we'll probably see more of that as it comes out over the years. And last night, we did pass through the asphalt overlay program, which just as a highlight, I think there's almost $4.5 million going to the streets in Federal Way to overlay them. And it's a 25-year program to hit every street in the city, maybe 30 years, but it's a good program, and we voted on that last night.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee, FEDREC, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our committee met last Tuesday. We approved a number of items. If you look at your consent agenda, item B through J, that was came from Finance Committee, and I hope you will approve that. Our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, March 28th at 5 p.m.
All right, thank you very much. All right, now we've got Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, otherwise known as LTAC. Councilmember Sefa Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Our meeting, which was scheduled for tomorrow, has been canceled. But there are great things that we are working on and embarking on, so I'm really excited about this committee. One of them is actually reviewing the existing bylaws of the committee, which has been shelved for a long time. So that's one, and then there's other grants and activities that Tanya's really planning for this committee that has been inactive for various reasons. So I'm really excited. We have a full quorum now, so we're really ready to hit the road running. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. The Public Issues Committee meeting is tomorrow, commonly known as the PIC, at 7 p.m. on Zoom. And we'll be discussing the Regional Water Quality Governance Program, Metro Service Recovery Plan, King County Homelessness Authority 5-year plan, which I'm hoping that this council has before us eventually, and potential future levies and ballot measures, which is always interesting when other cities in King County talk about what they're putting on the ballots in the coming elections. The SCA is having a networking event on Wednesday, 3/29 at 6 p.m. and King County Executive will be the guest speaker. AWC is having a lobby day on 3/16, 9 to 3 in Olympia. You need to pre-register for that. And I'd also like to say congratulations to Deputy Chief Steve Neal on his retirement from the city of Federal Way. He was our deputy police chief and retired recently, and thank you for your service, Deputy Chief. And we appreciate your service, and I hope you enjoy your retirement that you've earned so well. Thank you.
Very good. Council President.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So we will be going to Washington, D.C. as a delegation. The primary reason, part of it is a conference, but the primary reason is to lobby on your behalf. And I have gone, this will be my 9th time I've gone in my lifetime. 7 times I went just to get $12 million for the city. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And so in order to get the money that we need for our city, we need to hit them and do it every month after month after month. So we get the amount of money that is deserving for our community, rather than going to Redmond, Bellevue, Seattle, the bigger cities, the power cities, the people with power people. We have people power. We're here, and we're going to make sure that they remember that we are here. One other thing I need you to remember, with housing density that's being discussed in Olympia right now, HB 1110, that sounds like a good thing. It sounds like density would provide more housing for people at a lower rate. No, what that will do, which you have to understand, is if you have a house on a big lot, which many people in Fedway do, you can take that house that maybe is what, 700,000, 800,000, maybe mine, and tear it down and build 4 units. And then all of a sudden, something that was is worth 4 times as much. And so it doesn't really reduce the cost, but it certainly does provide money for builders. But what it also provides for the citizens who are around it, more traffic problems. The city has to provide for the sidewalks and the other things that go with it. Part of the problem is each city in this state should be able to make their determination for their own community, what's best for their community, and shouldn't be relegated by the state. So just remember, housing density may not be that much of a wonderful thing that you think it would be. Thank you.
Yeah, it would essentially eliminate single-family housing as its definitive zoning. Very concerning. And what's really concerning is most people don't have any idea this is happening. And won't have any idea until a fourplex shows up next to their house.
Or 6plex or more.
Yeah,
because
yeah, you are correct. That's really awful. Okay, thank you very much for the reports. Item 7, consent agenda. These items have gone through committee and be passed all at once, or after I read each and every one of them, I'll ask if a council member wants an item pulled for separate consideration. Item A, minutes for the February 21st, 2023 regular and special meeting minutes. B, monthly financial report for November 2022. C, monthly financial report December 2022. D, AP vouchers 11/17/22 through 12/16/22 and payroll vouchers 11/1/22 through 11/30/22. E, AP vouchers 12/17/22 through 1/15/23, payroll vouchers 12/1/22 through 12/31/22. Item F, AP vouchers 1/16/23 through 2/15/23, and payroll vouchers 1/1/23 through 1/31/23. G, resolution, City of Federal Way investment policy. H, tourism enhancement grant recommendation 2023 swimming speedo sectionals. I, backup and disaster recovery service agreement. And J, the 2023 Community Development Department personnel adjustments. Counselor, are there any items you would want pulled for separate consideration? All right, hearing none, Council President Kochmar, with respect to A through J.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the consent agenda, items A through J.
I second.
There's been a motion, and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matters passed unanimously. Okay, as promised, instead of going on to item 8, we are going to move to item 9, ordinances. We've got, if you take a look at the agenda, we've got 2 items A and B are in the alternative, and at this point. EJ, do you have the same presentation essentially for a combined?
Correct. It's one presentation for both.
Very good. Okay, please proceed. EJ Walsh, our Public Works Director. And just to make sure it's clear, this is item A, Council Bill 843. The first option is designated the preferred operations and maintenance facility site and authorizing property acquisition. Option 1 is expansion of existing facility east of 28th Avenue South, or item B, Council Bill 844, designated the preferred operations and maintenance facility and authorizing property acquisition. Option 2, northeast intersection of South 320th Street and First Avenue South. EJ.
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, Deputy Mayor, members of council. So tonight we are here to do a brief recap, and then, as the mayor said, there's 2 ordinances on your agenda, but the expectation is only one of them will advance. So with that, I will dive right in. So the policy question before council is, should council approve an ordinance selecting the preferred site for the joint operations and maintenance facility and authorize related property acquisition? So a little bit of background on the project holistically. So we formally started this again in June 2016. There have been 2 previous related projects, but this project specifically started in June 2016. 2018 through 2019 was a site needs review that was performed to determine effectively what needed to be done in the long term for the future of the city as a operations and maintenance facility for all city departments, not for any one department. In May of 2020, the council authorized the planning and feasibility work to begin in earnest. May 2021, we came before council and the site selection criteria was identified and confirmed. And then May 21 through February of 2022 was the due diligence and the property search process. And then in May of 2022, there was some updates to the final site selection evaluation and next steps. And then in July of 2022, a selected preferred site was made and we started formal due diligence. So specifically that time frame of May 21 through February of 2022, there were a couple of key things that we did that I want to point out. The first was we went through a pretty extensive review process with our outside consultants to review all city-owned parcels. And then as well as that, we also reviewed all parcels that were both on market and off market. And basically what and where could this go? Those were ranked, and out of the 40 sites that were identified in the first cut, in that first bullet, there were 3 viable locations identified at that point. As you heard during public comment, a 4th location kind of came at the last second during this, was evaluated. That property was subsequently sold and drove the price up, which is why it came off of the rolls as a viable option. At that point, with that sale being completed, that is no longer a viable option in comparison to the other 3, so it was dropped off of the analysis again. But that's the brief history on that. So with that, for these 3 parcels, we did some very high-level original analysis, which included looking at title reports and analyzing recorded documents and covenants. The ranked findings of those 3 sites were presented to council, and then subsequent to that, we reviewed approximately 20 additional sites that were identified either by the public through council or by council members directly, and ultimately came back to the same 3 parcels. So of those 3, the 1 was identified and advanced as a preferred alternative. So with that preferred site selected, we started the environmental due diligence work, which included looking at the site in detail. It also went and started working through outside agency requirements. So this is kind of the next step deeper in the process. Parallel to that, we also are continuing to advance the design of the buildings themselves, knowing that that building can basically be picked up and put on any parcel. You know, the space needs is kind of independent of where the space is. While we were working through those outside agency requirements, an unrecorded site restriction was discovered. I think you've heard extensive public comment about this with RCO.
Can Can you please say who RCO is?
The Recreation Conservation Office, which
Okay.
is a state agency. I had to phone a friend and from John over there, make sure I had the right acronym. And what they told us is the project is feasible. We can build at the identified alternative. However, there's additional restrictions that come with that. There is, so those easements and documents were completed before the city incorporated under King County. They should have been recorded, they were not, which is why they did not come up originally. When the city incorporated, it should have been recorded a second time. It was not recorded a second time. So that is kind of how we got to where we are. It is something that was identified, and in consultation with the mayor and council, we re-looked at the three alternatives to determine if this was still the best site, and ultimately, here we are tonight, recommending that we pursue an alternative. And the reason we're doing that is the slide you see in front of you. So the updated base cost summary with the additional requirements from the easements from King County and RCO from before the city was a city drove up the cost of that as well as the timeline to complete the project. So we did update this table, and site 1 is the suggested alternative to the previous selected site. The comments that you heard tonight during public session were about site 3, which site 3 on this slide is First and 320th. So to be very clear, what we have done throughout this entire process is all of the numbers and comparisons have been what have been identified as the base options. Fleet maintenance, fueling, and future expansions of the specific items that council identified during the entire process is included in all of them in space and needs and budget, but it is not in the table because they're effectively a wash across all of the sites. So the alternative site selection, with that, what we went back and did is we re-reviewed all of the previous site selection work. We did go back through all of the previous council suggested locations a second time and made sure that, some of those have sold subsequent to this conversation and are no longer on market. We did go through that exercise a second time. There was no new data presented as part of that would change anything. We also went through and reviewed if any new parcels had come to market, which there is not anything that has come to market that would meet the objectives of this. And as the slide says, there's no identified new viable alternatives. So with that, we are back to the same 3 sites. The first one, and there's a map of both of these, is to expand the existing maintenance yard, which is seen in the hashed red lines at the bottom of the slide, to the north, up to what is 20, or what is shown in the blue hashed. I'm drawing a blank on colors here. Staying on the east side of 28th. This slide does accurately represent the Sound Transit acquired properties along what would be the eastern edge of the property. And that is why this area between what is shown as I-5 and the back property line exists, because that is where the light rail is in the middle of being constructed. The alternative site 3 is the one that we took off the table. So site 3 is the northeast corner of First Avenue and 320th. It is about a 16-acre site. It does contain a little over 5 acres of wetlands that would need to be mitigated and/or preserved, which yields about a 10 to 10.5 acre site, which is the required area based on what our consultants found. So that wetlands we would not be filling, we would be preserving them, but this would take the remainder of that site. So we got asked to put together a couple, and these are pulled from the original report that is on the city website, but a comparison of the pros and cons between the 2 sites. So to go through them quickly, Site 1 is the expansion to the north of the existing yard. The pros are it's compatible with the existing use, both the maintenance yard today as well as Sound Transit to the east. In comparison, there is a minimal natural environment impact between the 2 sites on this site, and the relocation process, which is a short-term concern, is simpler on this site. The pros on the First and 320th site is there is no existing developed use of that property, so it would not be displacing anything. It does have better arterial access to the property. It is centered more closely to the center of the city, and it has closer proximity to City Hall, which is where the rest of staff works out of. For the cons on both, on the expansion of the existing site, this site is more challenging topographically. It's not quite as level. So, that is some of the difference you see in the costs on the site construction, is accounting for walls and grading. That's more extensive on this site. Construction staging, no addition than when you, no different than when you do an addition on your house. We have to work around the existing operations that are in there today. There's no alternative where we can stop Public Works, the community development staff that's in there, the parks staff that's in there from working for 2 years while we tear down the facility and build a new one. We have to maintain operations during this. So that does present a little bit more challenge to this site. That being said, we do have a plan in place to be able to accomplish that. It's just more Jenga blocks to juggle. And this site does have an increased number of parcels to acquire. So this one proposes to acquire 12, whereas First and 320th would be a singular parcel. The cons on the First and 320th side is, as mentioned during public comment, the wetlands impact, also, as mentioned, the residential uses surrounding them. We have certainly heard from some of the neighbors to the north of this site. The lost opportunity for other development. So, as mentioned, there was a pre-application a couple years ago to develop a international school on this property. That is currently sitting dormant, but it is a lost opportunity for other development of whatever that may look like in the future. This site also requires significantly more frontage improvements, as well as improvements to the traffic signal at 320th and First Avenue. So the options considered for council tonight, option 1 is to adopt the proposed ordinance selecting site 1. And this would, for everyone's benefit, this would be Council Bill 843. To expand the existing operations and maintenance facility to the north and authorize related property acquisition. Option 2, which would align with Council Bill 844, would be to adopt the proposed ordinance selecting site 3, relocate the operations and maintenance facility to First and 320th and authorize related property acquisition. Or option 3 is to provide additional direction to staff. With that, the mayor's recommendation, the staff recommendation is option 1, which is Council Bill 843, to select site 1, expanding the existing operations maintenance facility to the north of the current yard. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council, any questions for EJ? Anyone? Councilmember Walsh?
I'm very pleased to.
Actually, hold it, before we go there.
Public comment.
But yeah, we've got one public comment, and we've got to read, well, what we're going to do is actually, we've got Anna Patrick first, but before I call on public comment, do we have any questions for EJ? Anybody? Deputy
We
Mayor?
can ask them after public comment.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, Anna, just stay close, EJ.
Hi. I'm just going to keep it really short and sweet. I'm hoping that you'll go with option 1, which is to expand the existing site. Seems like the obvious solution. It's right by the freeway. And we all know it needs to be made new. And, I think there's been a couple feasibility studies on that property on 320th and First. Seems to be an interest in maybe a school or something. And so it's not like people aren't interested in it. I'd love to see it be something besides homeless encampments, but it has improved from what I've heard or seen, so I'd like to see that continue. And, the thought of tearing all the trees down and putting in a maintenance yard next to housing I'd love to see some of that woodsy area maintained, maybe even make it a space where the public can go and enjoy the nature that's there. It's an asset to our community. It seems to be a theme for Federal Way that we sort of embed things within nature, and, you know, to put an operation maintenance facility right there, or whatever you call it, just doesn't make sense. So, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor? And hold on, are there any other comments? Okay, that we've got, normally, what we did for first reading, we added a public comment, but if you've already commented in the regular public comment period, yeah, you've already accomplished that.
No.
No, go ahead, please.
EJ, could you let us all know what can be built on the 320th site? What it's zoned for and what could possibly go there besides the school that we've talked about? Or somebody.
So it can certainly be a maintenance yard. An operations maintenance yard is a government facility. Beyond that, I'm going to let the community development director chime in on land use.
Keith, what's the zoning there?
You know, without looking at a zoning map, I'm going to say it's professional office. Let me quickly pull up a map.
Could multifamily go there?
Not today.
Okay.
There are people looking at that site, I know, right now for townhouses. I've had calls from developers, but right now it's not zoned for that. It's
Okay.
professional office. And that was a question that came up last night at Land and Shore. How much professional office zoned land are we going to see being asked to be something else? I think the answer is all of it that's not built on.
Okay. And the owner of the property has not asked that we rezone it?
We have not heard from the property owner recently on that property, no.
Okay, good to know. I have some other questions, but I'll let other people ask questions.
Council, any other questions? Council President?
I'm concerned that we will have to buy people's homes that are to the north on the 28th Avenue site, which is, I think, actually better for them. And I think the fact that they aren't testifying is telling us that they think it's better for them, because they're in between a rock and a hard place, because Sound Transit came through and took up one whole side of their property. The other side is commercial street. And I hope that we will be able to help them actually in the end.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dovey?
Yeah, I just had one comment for the record, because this is a very difficult decision. We've been going on this, the council before me has been doing this for years, and now we're going through this. And I'm okay with option one. Wasn't my first choice, but when we've had some very heartfelt comment about trees and birds and the property, I just want to make sure we have the comment, as our community development individual said, Keith, that we're going to get a lot of pressure from somebody else to rezone that. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I want the public and everybody to know that that could be something other than trees and woods and things like that someday in the future. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Do you want a property that the city council manages or the city manages, or somebody that may come in and say, I want 700 townhouses here? Right now, it's just building the property for the yard, or leaving it the way it is, but we may not have control over what happens after what happens at the state of Washington or what else. So I just want to make that on record. I'm a guy that's a tree hugger. I love birds. I hate trees going down. But I just want to make sure people don't say, oh, this is the end of the fight. It's going to stay the way it is, because things change. The only way it would stay the same is if the city bought it and turned it into a park.
That's an idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that was on record.
All right, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor? Oh, Councilor Chang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, I do agree with Councilmember Dovey. But EJ, I do have two questions. Question number one related to Site 1. So you said that the site is not level, and we have to increase the number of parcel that we have to acquire. With that two things, will it increase the overall cost for this facility?
No, the costs that were shared represent that. So in comparing the two sites between each other, there is an increased cost associated with effectively what boils down to building retaining walls and dirt work for Site 1. But that is why that cost for site work is higher than Site 3, is because that's reflected in there.
I see, thank you. My second question is related to Site 3. Can you pull up that map?
Sure.
And will you be able to show us where the wetlands are? And how are we going to mitigate that?
I think I stopped sharing those. So Site 3, the wetlands are, so we would have to go formally map them to find the exact limits of them, but as it shows in the King County wetland mapping, it would effectively be this eastern kind of corner of the property, roughly in here.
Okay.
And like I said, it's between 5 and 6 acres, but I mean, that is all stuff that would need to be finalized of what the exact dimensions are if this were the site that was advanced.
So if that is the area, then of course we can't really build anything on it, correct?
Correct. That would have to be preserved. And that's true pretty much of any development proposal. That's not unique to what we're talking about tonight.
Thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the citizens who fought really hard to have this maintenance yard built somewhere other than the Steel Lake Annex property. And I know that was a 4-3 vote. It wasn't, we don't often have that, split votes up here, but that was a tough night. And, we had citizens who pulled up, they found the deed to the Steel Lake Park that the city signed that said it would stay a park. And then Suzanne Vargo and Marie Sequa found the RCO letter about once it's a park, it has to stay a park unless you do all these things, which we could do, but it's going to take money, it's going to take time, and we don't have time. We need to get this yard built because our staff needs it. It should have been built years ago, and it wasn't. And every day it's not built, it's costing us more money as a city. So I'd like to thank Suzanne and Marie for their work in notifying us. I do understand and realize that city staff would have found this, and but I think that they did save us some time in bringing it to our attention in December. So what are the next steps after we vote tonight? Because we will be making a decision tonight on what site. What are the next steps and how is this going to be financed? I think that's something as a council that we've talked about, but maybe you can refresh all of our memories.
Sure. So there's a couple questions there. So taking the first one on next steps first, and if I miss one of your questions, if you can remind me, because like I said, you had a couple there. I don't want to skip anything. So next steps. So tonight it is first reading. So effectively at the next meeting, it'll be back for second reading. After tonight, we will notify the property owners of whichever site it's selected. So they'll get a letter that it has been selected through the first reading. At that point, nothing else will happen until second reading occurs. That way, the ordinance can be enacted. Once all of that occurs, for right-of-way or for property acquisition, we typically use an outside company to facilitate that. We do not have a property acquisition group within the city. So we contract that work, which, to the earlier question, that's included as part of the numbers that have been shared. So that firm will begin the dialogue with the property owners of whichever property is selected. They, as part of that work, they will do an appraisal, fair market appraisal. And just like you would if you were to sell your house or sell a piece of property, it's the same appraisers that you can go hire. They will hire appraisers and do that work, and make an offer to those property owners on the city's behalf. The person that's receiving the offer can have a counter appraisal done, so they can hire their own appraisal if they want. Under condemnation law, we are required to reimburse them up to, I believe it's $700 under the state law, which is more than most appraisals cost for the type of property that we're talking about. They will then basically try and reach a negotiated settlement. If they can reach it, the city does have the authority under the state laws to assist with relocation up to a percentage of the contract price. So that, again, is all built into, with an assumption that we would do that, that is built into the properties, to the pricing that you saw tonight. As those agreements are finalized, they will come back to council for final approval to actually transfer the property. And then once we acquire the property, when we reach a critical mass, we will effectively start the actual construction side of the work. If a property owner says we're not going to sell the property to you, that would start the condemnation process. Without getting too into the weeds on that, that is a legal process. Even through condemnation, the city is still required to pay fair market value. But effectively, it goes before a judge, and a judge mandates it. That's a very oversimplified version of that process, but effectively, that's what happens. So then, as the properties roll into city ownership for this, as I mentioned, there will be a conversation at some point where, hey, we have enough of the parcels under city ownership, if it is site one that's selected, that we can actually go commence construction if we have 1 or 2 properties or 3 properties that do go through condemnation, while that's occurring, the construction, because to your point, time is money, and we need to get this moving. So we can start that process concurrent while we are still working on finalizing the last couple of properties, if this site is selected. If it's site 3, obviously, we need to go through the condemnation process prior to being able to go do work on the property. As far as financing goes, that hasn't changed from what was presented to council previously. So it is funded effectively a third. So a third to surface water out of the utility. This is on the surface water capital improvement plan. And then a third out of the streets program and a third out of parks, which effectively comes back to the general fund. It is proposed to, the previous plan that was shared with council is to bond the project when we get to that point. And we will, those are the numbers that were shared previously. None of that work has changed significantly. So when we get to the point that we have finalized numbers, that will, Director Groom and myself will come back before council for an actual finalized bonding package and what that looks like in terms and everything that goes along with that.
So what is it,
Am I missing one of your questions?
the timeline? So if things go well, whatever property is chosen, and the funding's available, when do you anticipate that construction would actually start?
So the goal we set last summer, when we selected the original site, was construction would start spring of 2024. So basically a year from now. So we are going to try our darndest to maintain that schedule. This is certainly a hurdle in that, and we have some steps we need to get through before we can do that to see if that is still feasible. But, from our perspective, from my perspective, our goal is to maintain that schedule as close as possible. Because to your point, based on the CPI from 2022, every month delay is about $300,000 in cost to the city.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the information.
All right, any other questions? Councilmember Walsh? do you have a
Yeah,
motion?
I'd first like to make a comment. First, thank AJ and staff for the hard work that they've done on this. As Deputy Mayor Honda mentioned, Back a number of months ago, when we voted on this originally, I made the original selection of a preferred site. It was a 4-3 vote. It was one of the toughest votes that I had ever made, but I was trying to do the thing that was responsible, financially responsible, and that would, for the taxpayers of the city, and also help get our staff as quickly as possible into facilities that would work better for them. And like I say, that was the preferred option. With the investigation that was done and the public comment, it became obvious that it was not the best option. And I want to extend my appreciation to the public for the comments that have been made. And considering there's some Boy Scouts here that are seeing how meetings work, I know that you've sat through what you may consider a dull meeting, but you have seen how the public process works, and you've seen the power of involvement, and hopefully you will remember that. But anyway, but I want to thank the public for the various comments that we've had, and the input over the last few months on everything. And with that, if there's no further comments, I'd like to make a motion.
Council President.
Just one quick request that at the end of the north end, there is a cul-de-sac. So we're only on half of the cul-de-sac that we will be ending if we take 28th Avenue South. The other half of the cul-de-sac, there will be homes facing to the north, but the south end of can you put some kind of a buffer in there?
So let me make sure I understood you. So the cul-de-sac, the existing road is basically the northern border. You're referencing the houses that are on the north of the street.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's a cul-de-sac at the top north.
Correct. Yeah. So there's existing houses that are kind of like on the north and then kind of wrap to the end of the cul-de-sac. I think that's what you're referencing. Yes, we're required to screen that and buffer it. Absolutely.
Councilmember Watt.
All right. With that said, I move to forward the proposed ordinance designating option number 1 to the March 21, 2023 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Actually, at this time, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title prior to anything else occurring?
Council Bill Number 843, designating the preferred operations and maintenance facility site and authorizing property acquisition. Option 1, expansion of existing facility east of 28th Avenue South. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, providing for the selection and acquisition of certain properties for the purpose of constructing a joint use operations and maintenance facility and directing staff to exhaust reasonable negotiation efforts to purchase said properties.
Okay. Is there any, there's been a motion, there's been a second. We've read the ordinance title. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item A prevails. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. We are right now at 8:33. We've been in session for just over 2 hours. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Would you please set your watches and clocks? Right now is actually 8:34. So why don't we call it an even 6 minutes at 8:40? Let's reconvene. Please be close. There we go.
for Jenna. That's Jenna Peth. She's going to be with us in DC. She's with Craig Agnew.
Oh, great, great.
I'm here tonight to talk about the 2022 National Opioid Lawsuit Settlement Proposal. So the item tonight arises from a nationwide opioid settlement agreements, actually several settlement agreements, 5 of them that have been reached to resolve ongoing litigation brought by various states and political subdivisions across the country against a couple of drug manufacturers. That's the first 2, Teva and Allergan, and then several pharmacies, retailers, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart in this case. So a key piece here is that all of those entities have already agreed to this settlement. The settlement is done and finalized as to the terms of that settlement. And the terms of that settlement between all 5 of the entities, it's approximately financially $19 billion, so it's a very large number. Subdivisions, including the city of Federal Way, must opt in by a certain date. That date is coming up very soon, April 18th, to participate in the settlement and to receive an apportionment of funds. The amount of settlement proceeds paid out depends on the level of participation from cities and other political subdivisions. Just a very brief overview of the settlements. Assuming the maximum level of participation, in other words, all the potential subdivisions opt in, Teva would pay up to $3.34 billion over a series of years and provide a generic version of its drug for a certain amount of years as well. And then I won't go through all the numbers here, but essentially each of the settling parties has to pay a significant chunk of money under the settlement. 85% of the total settlement funds will be allocated to participating states and subdivisions, and those proceeds can be spent by the subdivisions, including the city, on approved opioid-related abatement efforts, and those settlement proceeds may also be pooled with other entities in order to achieve the same goals. The settlement, importantly, does not address any action, or rather the currently pending Attorney General's Office action against Johnson & Johnson. That's a currently pending litigation. So with that, options here are to approve participation in the proposed settlements or do not approve participation, and the mayor's recommendation is option 1.
Council, any questions? Okay, Council President Kochmar.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the city participation in the 2022 National Opioid Settlement Agreements and authorize execution of all required documents.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I do have a,
Yes,
Kind of
Councilmember Stefa Dawson.
yeah, why is CVS being sued?
There's a little bit of detail in Exhibit A to the memo, but in general, the reason that the pharmacies themselves were sued is because the plaintiffs in the lawsuit felt that they did not have appropriate procedures in place to prevent opioids being given to people who should not have them. And so if you look at Exhibit A there, you'll see that there's actually a number of actions that the pharmacies also agreed to take in terms of internal policies to ensure that the right people were able to get opioids, and the people who should not be able to obtain those opioids are not able to. So that's why they were included.
Thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Will this increase costs for the consumer?
I don't know the answer to that. It's possible it may, given the fact that there's financial settlements that obviously pharmacies who provide these drugs to the consumers are paying out. But I will say that the city's participation in this settlement will have no effect on that because they've already agreed to pay out a certain amount of money. And so regardless of whether the city accepts the money or doesn't accept the money, our choice as a city won't have an effect on those prices.
I understand that. I'm just concerned overall for long-term effects on the consumer, since the pharmacies aren't the ones who made the drugs, and the pharmacies aren't the ones who convinced physicians to use the drugs. So it's interesting that they're going after pharmacies. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. We'll go in this order. Councilmember Tran, Councilmember Walsh, Councilmember Dovey, Oh, okay, so,
was just ready.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Walsh, then Councilmember Norton.
Okay, just one other quick question. Do we have any guesstimates on how much the city may receive out of this?
It's really uncertain at this point, since it's dependent on the level of participation amongst other cities and other political subdivisions, which we can't control. So I don't have a good estimate for you, unfortunately, at the moment.
Okay, Councilmember Norton.
To answer Deputy Mayor Honda's question, these companies made trillions of dollars on these opioid sales, so these settlements are pretty minimal compared to the amount of money that they've been making on opioid sales over the last few decades. So I don't think it should have an effect on the cost, because they take that into consideration when they sell drugs.
All right. Okay, there's been a motion, a second. This is part of the discussion. There's been a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes unanimously. Okay, item B, funding proposal for Sister Cities trip. We've got a staff report from Brian Davis, our city administrator. Brian.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. For your consideration this evening is a funding proposal for the upcoming Sister Cities trip in April. The proposal includes airfare, hotel, train, food, bus, and gift expenditures for 11 people that the city would sponsor to go on the trip. There are more, but the 11 are proposed to go on this trip. The total funding package is $39,323. It's the first trip that we've done in 20 years, I believe. And the group that is going is Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council Members Asefa Dawson, Tran, and Walsh, Economic Development Director Tanya Carter, Parks Director John Hutton, Police Chief Andy Wong, Pam Jones and Bill Venino from the Mayor's Office, and Becca Martin, the Chamber CEO. And happy to answer any questions.
5,000 of that represents a donation.
Thank you, Mayor. So, yes, 5,000 of this budget is a donation, which we're accounting for as a budget, in the budget. So if you take away that, it's more, the city's portion is 34,000. But since it's a donation to the city, we have to account for that. But general fund expenditures is more on the order of 35,000.
All right. Council, any questions? Deputy Mayor?
I would just like to say that when I first got on the city council, Mike Park presented to then Mayor Priest an option of building a park. It was going to be a Korean Memorial Park, I believe, above the Aquatic Center. And part of the money for that park was going to come from our sister city in Korea, and it still is. And so this is not just a trip to take a trip, it's actually a trip to say thank you, because they've been here over and over and over visiting us, and we haven't gone to see them, and they are contributing a fair amount of money to build the park.
And to your point, Deputy Mayor, they're also contributing a portion of for the portion of the trip in Korea. They are providing a generous contribution for lodging and food while in Korea. So that's not accounted for here, and that's definitely worth noting.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Councilmember Walsh?
Just related to what Deputy Mayor Honda said, a while back, we had the groundbreaking for the park there. What's the status of that?
John?
We're talking about the garden at Panther Lake?
Yes.
Yeah.
Working together with the Korean group, the city is going to take on the portion of the grading, earth moving, and any kind of tree removal professionally there, help them with organizing for any utility hookups that they may need, and then they will begin work. There's already a memorial or a marker that has been delivered from Korea to here, and we are storing it for them. And I just had a meeting with Mike Park and Mr. Kim, and they are having the gazebo-like, that's the inappropriate term, but the structure shipped over from Korea as well.
Is there a time frame?
I don't have a solid time frame for you right now, Councilmember.
All right. Okay, there is, let's see here. Council President Kochmar, do you have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the mayor's funding proposal for the April 2023 Sister Cities trip at an amount not to exceed $39,323.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Brian. Okay, item C, federal legislative priorities. Staff report from Tanya Carter, our Economic Development Director.
Getting some help from EJ on this for the setup. Good evening, Mayor, Council President, Deputy Mayor, and council members. I'm Tanya Carter, your Economic Development Director. Tonight, just wanted to review our 2023 federal delegation legislative priorities. I also have our Director of Governmental Issues, Jenna Perth, who's here from Van Ness Feldman, who is our legislative consultant. So I will just review our policy question. So the policy question is, should the City of Federal Way adopt the draft of the federal legislative priorities for 2023? And just for a little bit of background, the city has engaged with Van Ness Feldman to support the advocacy of Federal Way priorities to our federal legislative delegation. And the members, there are certain members of the City Council that will be attending the National League of Cities conference in the end of March, which the mayor was alluding to earlier this evening. And they also plan to present the federal delegation with our Federal Way city priorities at that time. And so what we wanted to review tonight are two different requests that we will be making, or the council will be making, to our federal delegation. The first issue will be the congressionally directed spending requests, and we have three requests that we are presenting to the federal delegation. Number one is EV charging, number two is childcare, and number three is community space. The details are on page 300 of the packet, and also I believe that most of you have copies of this at the dais, so I won't go into reading the details of each of the three. So these are all what we are calling shovel-ready proposals. So they are fairly detailed and they align with the federal delegation's priorities. The second topic are the council priorities that we collected through interviews with all of the council members, and they are again listed here in 5 bullet points. However, they are listed in detail on page 300 of your packet this evening. And they are technology incubator, South King County workforce development support, addressing community challenges, various transportation projects that are all regionally based, and then also funding for turf fields at Celebration Park. So the decision this evening will be to either approve the priorities that have been gathered, and the other option would be to not approve and provide direction. I will also note that the talking points that will be provided to council are also provided in this packet. So these would be the talking points that council would be bringing to the federal delegation. And Jenna can also provide any detail, but we do have staff meetings set up with the 3 delegation members. So Smith, Murray, and Cantwell. There are staff level meetings that are confirmed. Maybe Jenna, you can speak to that briefly.
Sure. Yeah. Nice to see everyone this evening. So we have staff level meetings confirmed with all 3, and we're in the process of working on member level meetings. So meetings with Senator Cantwell and also Congressman Smith. Those are in process, so we're still working with their scheduling offices to figure out whether that's something they're going to be able to accommodate. But we're optimistic that that's something that we can make happen.
Very good. Thank you very much. Great job to you both. Council President?
You did an excellent job, Tanya and Jenna. Thank you very much. This is absolutely excellent, exactly what we should be doing. And I just want to point out that on this page where we're talking about the staff is sometimes, as Jenna will tell you, more important than the member themselves. So what you need to do is get a personal relationship with that staff member and keep talking to them every month about our priorities that we want for our community. And I learned that from Senator Cantwell's staff many years ago, who said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So thank you. And Jenna will be your guide in Washington, D.C. Jenna is with Van Nessen Feldman, Rick Agnew. So thank you. Excellent job.
Yeah, and just to build on that point, you're absolutely right, Linda, that it's really important to cultivate those relationships with the congressional staff, because they're ultimately the ones that are working with their member of Congress, whether that's the senator or the congressman, to actually get things done, whether that's at the committee level or within the personal office. That's kind of how things work in Washington. So we work really hard to cultivate those relationships and help you all cultivate those relationships with staff.
Great, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight and staying through our whole meeting. Appreciate that. Are these meetings going to be in person or on Zoom?
They will be in person.
Awesome.
I know when I took you guys around last year, we did have one in-person meeting, but quite a few were virtual. Since that time last year, both the Senate and the House have reopened. So they've let down some of their COVID-19 related security protocols. So you're actually able to just cruise right into the building now, which is convenient for constituents that are coming into town to meet with their representatives.
Do we need to show any proof of COVID vaccination to get into the building?
No, we have, most offices have dropped that. We typically ask folks to still bring a photo of your vaccination card if you have it, just because you never know what kind of protocol you might encounter, particularly if you're meeting with a member. Sometimes there's different levels of security protocols for the members versus the staff, just based on everybody's kind of comfort level. So we ask folks to just bring it just in case.
There is one thing that I would like the city to eventually ask for, and if the city doesn't want to, I can find other sources, but along Campus Drive, we have flags. And they're around the Weyerhaeuser King County pool for a reason, because the pool was built for the Goodwill Games, which brought teams from all over the world here to swim. And the Federal Ace Optimus Club years ago put those flags up. Many of the flag poles have a sponsor, and many of the sponsors, because I have the list, are still around, but the flag poles are in very bad condition.
Yeah.
And many of them, the trees along Campus Drive have grown up to be big and beautiful and tall, and the flags are wrapped up in the trees. We have military folks who live in this city who are very unhappy with the fact that the flags are being disrespected because of the trees, and you can't see them, and the flags get tangled. But in 1990, when this happened, when the flag poles were originally discussed by the City Council and the Seroptimus Club, there was either a resolution or an ordinance that the City Council voted so that the flag poles could be from 1st Avenue to 21st Avenue. And I would like to see eventually that, I would like actually Congressman Adam Smith maybe to get involved, because he is chair of the House Armed Services Committee, and I have a feeling that this would be something he would like to support in having new flag poles put up that have solar LED lights, and really highlighting this area of town, because the pool is an economic driver for the city. In 2010, the University of Washington did a study, and it was interesting to see how much of an economic driver it was in 2010, and it's only gotten better since then. So is that something that eventually we could ask for, or how would we go about doing that?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying this is certainly something that we can look into more and do some more thorough kind of background research on potential funding avenues. But to your last point about integrating lights and kind of highlighting the street more generally, I would say these type of projects have the most success when it's kind of an integrated type of project where you're improving something about sidewalk access or some type of other kind of community or economic development project, and the flagpoles would be part of that broader proposal. So that's certainly something that we could look at in the future. I also know there are several nonprofit organizations in DC that are connected with Congress pretty closely that fund things like flagpole development and things like that. So that's something we could look into as well.
Thank you.
All right. Council President?
One other thing I think we need to decide is who's going to go to whose offices, because I think we can only have 3. Do you count as?
No.
Okay, so we can have
I don't
you.
count.
He does count, but not like that.
So we can have 3 individuals plus the mayor.
Yeah.
So we do need to decide that yet, so we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But Jenna, tell me who's on your staff again that was so helpful.
On my staff.
Former,
Norm Dix.
Norm
Yeah,
Dix,
Yeah, former
yeah.
Congressman Norm Dix.
well, I
Yes,
just want you
yes.
to know that you are getting special attention. You are not going with other cities in a huge group. You're getting your own special attention.
right.
So that's what I was trying to work for all these years, because we have been like the ugly stepchild of Seattle, because Redmond, Bellevue, who have all the power businesses, were getting all the money, and we weren't. And so we're just going to stand up and say, hey, we're here. So thank you very much, Jenna.
Yeah, and just to close out, I want to compliment Tanya because she's been great to work with on kind of developing a really robust strategy on the federal side and kind of elevating Federal Way with the congressional delegation and advancing your priorities. So you have a great partner here.
We do, we do. And Congressman Dix, as you know, was referred to as the 3rd senator.
That's right.
He had been there for years and years, and so he had brought back tremendous resources to the region. Councilmember Seffa Dawson.
Yeah, to Council President's point, if we announced that we're all going to be gone, wouldn't we be able to all go to wherever we want to go within the realm?
We can. We can. It's just a matter of, we can't have, the 4 people can't get together and decide things when they're there. I mean, I
But
think
we're going to
it's.
say we won't do it, and that way
Well,
then,
what's that?
I said, if it's advertised, I don't remember what the protocol
Well,
is.
it's not
but-
we can't have we can't have a quorum meet anywhere, whether it's DC or anywhere, and decide something, because that would
Which
be an
we will
official
not be
meeting of the city
doing.
council.
But
What's
we're
that?
not, but I don't think we're going to do that. I just
We're
want.
not. We just want to be mindful of it. I think we want to be careful that we don't have 4 members of the city council meeting at one time.
We definitely do, and it's not just a concern over deciding something with 4 of you there, it's also a concern about discussing any official business with 4 of you there.
Right.
So that's also just as much of a concern.
But there's more than 4 traveling to Korea. How are we going to get around that? And if that's really a concern when we go to DC, shouldn't it be a concern when we go to,
Well, I think, that's a cultural exchange in which we're not going to be talking about policy per se. It's more of a cultural exchange. I just think that the point is we just need to be very careful and mindful of that we don't slip into and I think that's the council president's concern.
What I would suggest, Member Seffa Dawson, is perhaps 3 council members could go in for a short period. They can come out, that 2 others can go in, so that we all, no, I'm serious, so that we all have a face in front of the staff
I'll go to the
member.
coffee shop.
Nope, you're there to meet these folks, so.
Okay. Well, I think we'll just be mindful of it. All right. Any other questions? All right. Council President Kuchma, do you have a motion?
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be able to move approval of the proposed federal legislative priorities for 2023.
Is there a second? What's?
A second.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Great job. Thank you both. Thanks, Shannon. And thank you, Tanya. Great job. Okay, now moving on. We've already handled item 9A and B. Now we're moving on to second reading and enactment. Item C, Council Bill 842, mobile, an item very near and dear to my heart, the Mobile Food or Retail Vendors Code Amendments. Would the Deputy City Clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 842, Mobile Food or Retail Vendors Code Amendments. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to various amendments to Title 19 zoning and development, amending Federal Way Revised Code, Section 19.05.130, definitions, repealing Federal Way Revised Code 19.275.070, and adding new sections 19.210.080, 19.215.160, 19.220.150, 19.225.150, 19.230.170, 19.235.130, and 19.240.190, and adding a new chapter, 19.290, Federal Way Revised Code, including sections 19.290.010, 19.290.020, 19.290.030, 19.290.040, 19.290.050, 19.290.060, 19.290.070, and 290.080.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dovey.
Yes, I move approval of the ordinance.
I second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion?
There's just an error in there, if you have caught it.
What's that?
There's an error, it says 190.230. Yeah, you read it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Thank you. Item D, Council Bill 838, Iconic Sign Codes Amendment. We've got, would the Deputy City Clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 838, Iconic Signs Code Amendment. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to iconic signs, amending Federal Way Revised Code 19.05.190, and adding a new section, Federal Way Revised Code 19.140.135.
Councilmember Dovey?
Yes, I move to approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Jennifer?
Councilmember Asefa Dawson,
Aye.
Councilmember Norton,
Nay.
Councilmember Tran,
Aye.
Councilmember Walsh,
Aye.
Councilmember Dovey,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Honda,
Nay.
Council President Kochmar.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-2.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, before we get on to council committee reports, we had talked earlier in this, in the meeting when we had an audience, we still do on the, in TV land, regarding the legislation before the House regarding single-family housing. House Bill, Substitute House Bill 1110, or I think it's actually just HB 1110. There is a headline in the Seattle Times that says, quote, Washington House passes bill banning single-family zoning. And it says the bill would not mean the end of single-family homes, but it could eventually mean the end of neighborhoods of exclusively single-family homes. That just passed the House.
Could cities band together and fight this somehow? I mean, I know cities have banded together to try to fight it, but now that they've done this, because the governor hasn't signed it,
Correct. That's right.
and that is the final step.
Well, our problem is that the Association of Washington Cities, the organization that we pay over $70,000 per year, I just actually signed the bill yesterday for $74,000. They already banded together and put out and worked on this committee that essentially opened the door for this. And that's what what the council actually wrote the letter about. That's what I went down there and testified about. So I don't think getting we could get other cities to band together. We could try.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying have AWC do it, I'm
Right.
saying have us do it.
Right.
Because I know there's other cities that are against this.
Right.
Very much against this.
Yeah.
And the governor hasn't signed it.
Well, it still needs to pass the Senate also.
It does, and so the Senate, and then it obviously then needs to be signed by the governor, and so I think it's a great idea. I actually have been working with several other mayors as well. The mayor of Mercer Island is adamantly opposed to this, and as are some other mayors. I've spoken with him. It's Mayor Nice, or it's actually Mayor Nice, but it's spelled nice. Great name. But I think we need to be having conversations about banding together and saying this is not, this is not how we want to run things. But anyway, I wanted to give you, that's the headline. One of our lobbyists, Luke Esser, just informed me of that. All right, with that, we have now reached council reports. It's the first meeting of the month, which means Councilmember Asafa Dawson.
Thank you very much. We had a great meeting, and I have nothing to report on, so thank you and good night.
Thank you so much. All right, Councilmember Erica Norton.
Hi, I have nothing to report except 86-degree weather. Have a good night, everyone.
Just threw that a little nugget in there. I'm sure the people in California are wishing they had a little bit of your heat too. All right, Councilmember Tran.
I don't have anything, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, very good. Councilmember Walsh.
The only thing I was going to say is I also testified against HB 1110 as well, and we have reason for concern.
Yeah, we do. Thank you very much. Councilmember Dovey.
I echo the concerns, and I have nothing to report.
All right, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I do have some things to report. So on Saturday, I was invited to attend a dinner called Heroes for Nature, and it's a organization in South King County that works to get kids into nature and to beaches and environmental science center. It's called the Environmental Science Center. Mostly working in Renton and Highline schools, but I would love to see them come here. They are amazing. They take kids out to the beaches, they take kids out into the woods, to teach them about nature and how to take care of our earth, and just amazing. So anyway, it was a fun night. The person I went with won a 70-inch TV she bid $35 on it, and she won it, and now she doesn't know what to do with it because it's too big. So, but it's probably a good thing to have as a problem. The last Chamber of Commerce meeting, we had a speaker, he's the chair of the chamber, and he talked about critical thinking tools. I thought he was amazing. I actually thought he was so amazing, he might be retreat material.
Retreat.
Yeah, did you think? Yeah.
Absolutely.
We don't have to wait till next January to do a retreat. But he had a lot of good ideas and a lot of good suggestions on how to make decisions and how to think. So I have some of his information, so.
We could do, Deputy Mayor, we could do a study session and have him come.
I thought he was
Before
amazing.
meeting.
We didn't have enough time for him to really talk it as much as I would have liked to have heard from him.
We need more time than study session, though,
Okay.
because it's deep dive.
I mean, we could do a mid-year retreat. We've always talked about doing that. We could do that. And then Federal Way has a star, not me, not you, but a young man from Decatur High School, and he is on American Idol. And his name is, oh, you can pronounce it. Do you know how to pronounce it?
I just know his last name because I tried, but go ahead.
I am Tongi?
You don't pronounce it.
Okay, well, you say it then.
I think it's Dongi.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Okay, so he's been in the Federal Mirror, and he's awesome. I've heard him sing. Oh my gosh, I cried. I cried when he sung.
There's a YouTube video on him. Watch it, and it definitely brings tears to your eyes.
So, Councilmember Asafa Dawson would like to do a proclamation for him.
And
I
he's
think
willing?
that's a great idea. Maybe we can get him to come and sing his song and we can all cry. It was amazing. I mean, it was really,
I saw several council members. I think Council President and I think you, I think there was at least We almost had a quorum calling for, but not officially.
Yeah.
Calling for this, so.
Be careful what you say.
Exactly. So I think maybe at the next meeting. Or
Yeah, we can see if he's
what works-
available.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what works for his schedule.
How
He said
exciting,
he's available. I've been in contact with him. I've been in touch with him. so.
how exciting for Federal Way.
Yeah.
He says Seattle a lot, so we have to convince him to say Decatur High School, Federal Way, Washington, not Seattle, but, thank you.
Very good. All right, thank you very much.
Oh, one more thing. Thank you for all the people who donated food to the Seroptimus Food Drive for the Senior Center Food Bank. Thank you very much. We'll do it again next February. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, and then to round us out, the council president.
No report, and thank you very much, Thomas, for plugging me in at my dais. Thank you.
All right, great job, council. It's an honor to serve with you, and great job, staff, and thanks for all the people who testified before us tonight. Great work. We are adjourned.